Well, hello again everybody. Welcome to my latest video. Hope everybody's doing well these days, staying safe and healthy. Anyway, what I'm going to do today is a build that's sort of a mix match of parts. I mentioned this in previous videos that I've done. I had some extra parts that were left over from previous upgrades and other builds, and some that I had purchased just because they were good prices and I had them on the shelf. Well, now I'm going to put it all together. The part of it was the CPU. This CPU chip was the one that was taken out of one of those HP refurbished PCs. One of the ones that was upgraded from this i5 2400 to an i7 2600. And that one's currently being used by somebody who needs it for working from home. Also out of that same upgrade was some memory. Now we had upgraded that memory and I had left over two 2 gig DDR3 1600 megahertz memory sticks. So this memory here is going to be used, at least for now, on this build. I may upgrade this in the future depending on how it goes. Now the motherboard I'm going to use is this one I bought from eBay, this Asus P8H51-M motherboard, meant for those type of processors and should work fine. I have not tested it yet. I also have hard drive that was left over from a really early upgrade on my original HP workstation that I took out of service, almost 2 years ago now. But that hard drive has been sitting on the shelf ever since. I think that might be it for the used parts, but that's the heart of it, right? The CPU, the motherboard, the hard drive, which is a 500 gigabyte hard drive, and a total of 4 gig of memory. Now this motherboard came with a cooler. For these motherboards, well, I have one that's a newer version of that. Now I have these fans, 5 RGB fans, and I have this board that I bought specifically for another build since it didn't come with the low profile connector, I/O connector. It only has the high end. I saved it. It has a total of 4 USB 3.0 ports on it. And then I have this Rosewell 450 watt power supply that I bought at a really good price. Now I'm going to be putting up on the screen the price of all the components. But first, the last one. You've seen this, the dark flash case with a really nice tempered glass clear side to it. Very attractive case. So this is going to be the case that I'm putting this in, at least for now, until maybe there's a better one that goes into this in the future. We'll see. Now, I have to be careful with this because it really doesn't have cooling capabilities. So if I'm going to put something in here, I'm going to have to put some sort of more than fan type cooling in this case in order for me to feel comfortable with it. Anyway, those are the parts that I'm going to put in. You'll see up on the screen right now the parts list and the prices that they are. Some of them are actual purchase prices. Other prices that you see there are prices that are estimated based on the fact that I'm using parts that I've taken out of another upgrade. Went on to eBay and just looked for equivalent parts and put them in there in terms of what they're going for right now. With that, let me go ahead and go to the next step, putting the motherboard, the memory, and the CPU, and possibly the hard drive onto my test bench. I want to make sure that that all works together before I put them into the case. Okay, here's the test bench ready to receive the parts. Now I'm going to go through this. I may wind up speeding ahead, so there's no reason to see all the details of this necessarily. Start with the motherboard. So we have to start with the CPU. So let me open this socket up. And the little triangle is right here, on this corner right here. So I matched that up with the triangle that's on this. So it'll go right in this way. Then you give it a little bit of a wiggle in all directions. Triangles line up. We close this up. Make sure that this little tab goes underneath that screw. We give it a little cleaning with some isopropyl alcohol. Again, we do this with isopropyl alcohol because it will not leave a residue. We'll clean it and then we polish it as such. Then we take some thermal compound. I'm going to use this one, the one that's in the box. Put it like this and we push these in. There we go. You got to hear all 4 of them click. Can I reach it? Yeah, it looks like I can. What I'll do though is I'm going to take it out of this thing here and wrap it around, put it in this way into the socket. And I'll wire try this later on. Let me just bend it out of the way for now. I wanted to have the label this way. I know that's kind of picky, but I may change it later. But for now, let me leave it this way and I'll deal with making sure I wire wrap it properly. Now for the memory, got the 2 DIMMs. Make sure that you have in the right spot. These are not evenly distributed. Right this way is the wrong way. So this is the right way. So it matches. Since there's only 2, that's easy. I don't have to worry about position. Make sure that they're all open, all the sockets. This one has the opening on both ends. And we push it down. You gotta hear 2 clicks. Same thing for this one. 2 clicks. Make sure those arrows connect there. This one only uses 4 CPU power, 12 volts. So I just need to put one of these 2 in. Get the next one out of the way. And I'm going to go ahead and connect the video. So let me connect this up. Looks like the motherboard's missing one of the screws for that. I'll have to replace that if we're going to use it. Okay, for the front panel connectors, they go on this header here. I'm going to put up on the screen now exactly what each connection goes to. This is a pretty straightforward one, so it shouldn't be too much trouble. So the first thing I want to do is look for the power switch. That's this one here with the yellow and the white power switch on it. According to the diagram, the power switch goes to these 2 right here. Orientation of the wires for that doesn't matter. The next one we want is a reset switch. The reset switch is this purple one. So let me put that on the 2 that are identified in the diagram for that, the reset switch, these first 2. Then we want to put in the power LED. It's got 2 separate ones just for this case that we see here. So in this case we have a green wire for the positive and we have a white wire for the negative. According to the diagram, the power LED positive goes all the way at the end on this one, like that. And then 2 over from that is the negative. So that goes here, like that. And then the last one, well, I'll put the speaker on too. The hard disk LED, which does have a polarity to it. The red wire is the positive and the white wire is the negative. That particular one goes across from it. It's one that says on the diagram there, IDE, LED plus and minus. So it's these 2 pins right here. And then the last one we have is a speaker. The red is positive, and according to this, the red will go all the way over to back here, and the ground goes all the way 2 pins over. There's actually 2 grounds in the middle, so it doesn't really matter which 2 that is, and that should take care of the front panel. And then finally, the last critical one is the fan, the case fan. There's this fan here I have on a gooseneck. It has a connector to it, and the connector is here. I will put that in as such. And we should be ready to go at this point. Let me put the fan across the top of the motherboard, mostly on the south bridge, blow on that. So that's what I have blowing on it. And at that point we should be ready to give it a test. I won't put the hard drive on right now. It should come up into the BIOS. Let's see how that goes. Okay, now I have the monitor hooked up. I have a keyboard and a mouse hooked up here. So let me plug it in. Take this and plug it in. Oh, and we have a good indicator right off the bat. The green light came on. It's a much larger LED on this older motherboard, but it's still there. Turn off this light and you'll see what I mean, that LED. I'm going to hit the power switch button right here. It's thinking about it. Whoa, we got something. And we have the AMI BIOS up and running. It says I have to enter setup in order to do anything at this point. I got to hit the F1. Current BIOS settings do not fully support the boot device. Click OK to enter the BIOS setup. So here we are. We have CPU temperature showing. We have voltage of the CPU. Got a lot of stuff on this BIOS. So it's sort of an intermediate one, but it's only 32 degrees centigrade, the CPU and the motherboard. So those are perfectly okay. Now I have no hard drive on it, so there's not much I can do. Like I said, when we do some testing later on, if this thing looks a little too hot, I'll put another cooler on it. Put a regular tower type cooler. I have a couple of them. Let me put a hard drive on it and see if I get any better results. I have this hard drive right here that I showed before. 500 gigabyte. So first thing I have to do is the SATA data cable, and I'm going to put it into SATA connector 1 right here. Like that, and then the SATA data on this one that goes here. Okay, and then I'm going to need a SATA power connector to it. There we go. And what I'll do is I'll put something underneath this, with this empty box underneath it, just to keep it from vibrating too much. I'll hit the power on button. Got a bootable drive on it now. Does it boot? Booting into Windows. Let me turn all this off. It is coming up. Let's see what we got. I got a mouse. Can I log in? David Admin. Let's see what we got. And it came up. Windows actually came up. At this point, I know all the pieces work. Hard drive work, motherboard, CPU, memory. And we shut it down and we'll get all set up to move everything into its case. Okay, here we go. I have the case with both the glass and the back panel off right now, and I'm going to start populating it with the stuff that we've tested and some of the stuff that I still have in boxes. For example, one of the things that's still in the boxes is the actual RGB fans. So they'll all be installed. It's exactly the number we need, 5, so we're going to put 2 in the front, 2 in the top, and 1 in the back. So the first thing I'm going to do, since this has those disposable expansion card shields, I'm going to take them all off. I almost damaged a motherboard not too long ago because I tried to do this after the board was in there. And even though I don't use them all, I have some other ones that I'll use that are screw-in that I can use to fill these in. So let me get these all off. I have to get this little cover off first. I'll just leave it on the side there. And then these things have to be dipped in and wiggled. That's the problem. They don't dip the other way. And if you have a motherboard here, it will damage it. So just be aware of that. Let's get these all out of here. These are all disposable. I will be using 2 of them today, but if I add a video card to this, which is a double wide video card, then we'll be using all 4 of them. It's a shame to throw these nicely painted things away, but I have no choice on this. That way I don't have to worry about them causing any damage once I have the motherboard in there. So that's the first step. I can push this back down for now, and I'll deal with, tighten it up again, and I'll deal with putting in the blanks later as needed. Okay, let's start with the motherboard. It's already fully populated, as we did, and we tested it out as this. So we have a known going into this right off the bat. It already has the, by the way, it already has the 6 studs installed for this motherboard, which is exactly 6. Put this in here, line up the screw holes. I don't have the IO shield, which I said when I first opened up the box that this came with. I did check, and if I wanted to buy one, it cost like $10, which is like 25% of what the board cost me. So I'm not going to worry about that right now. Now, originally, I was going to put the power supply in first, but there is more than enough room with these holes here to get the cables over that I need. So it's got plenty of cable connections all down over here as well. Okay, nice and secure now. Got the motherboard in. Before I put any of the cards in, I'm going to make sure I get all the cables in. So in order to do that, I'm going to put the power supply in next, which has the very thick cables to it. So let me turn this guy over, and we'll get the power supply in with the ketchup and mustard cables. Hey, it was a good price. Always use the screws that came with the power supply. They're in a separate little bag that came with the power supply. Again, the reason we do that is so that you don't put screws in there that are the wrong size. The wrong thread is nothing compared to ones that are too long and will actually touch into some electronic parts. Not good with high voltage in there. And with that, we can start feeding some of these cables through to the other side. Well, definitely we need the ones for the motherboard. And as I recall, those cables are probably right over here. You see the connector on that side? So I can go to either this one or that one. I'm going to pick this lower one, push that through. And the real trick is this one up here. So I got to make sure I get that one for the 12 volts for the motherboard. This looks like it right here. 2 exact ones, 4 pins each. That's the motherboard, 12 volts. So that'll go in up over here. Hopefully I have enough slack to dress it real nice later. And then the rest of this, these power supply cables, I probably won't be pushing up. At least I'm not sure right now. I'm not sure about the RGB controller, whether or not that's going to need it or not. Oh, we're going to have plenty of slack on this one. So I need to put real easy on this one. I like this. There's definitely enough room in here, as I said, to put a 240 millimeter water cooler up here, all in one. Let's get this one. Make sure the 2 arrows are together. Try to get it to go in together if you can. If they're not lined up, it causes issues. It looks like it locked in place. Anything else on that? Let me undo the other cables here. I had already undone the main part of it when I took out the little goodie bag that was in there. Let me take the rest off. This one I like a lot, a nice thick ribbon that has what looks like both the HD audio and the USB, the front panel. So I like that a lot. So those are going to actually go down at the bottom of the motherboard. So I'm going to have to feed them through here under the PSU. Actually, it's way over here, but I may have to move that depending on how they arrange. And then, of course, the USB 3.0 as well. I'm just taking a guess which two of those holes I'm going to put it in. This one here, I'm going to stuff through the same hole, and then we'll decide whether or not to move something or not. Looks like it'll dress up real nice. Okay, it looks like I may have to move a couple of them here, because it looks like that stuff is the USB and the high def audio, probably over in this end. I don't see the high definition audio here. I'll have to look at this diagram. Yeah, the high def audio is this one down here, labeled AAFP. And then we have the two USB 2.0s here. There is no USB 3.0. So hopefully the card I put in there, I'll be able to connect this up to it so that the front panel USB 3.0 will draw it from the card that I'm adding. So we'll hope for the best on that. Let me take a look at the card right now and see does it have. Actually what it has is a regular USB 3.0 connector here. So I may need to get an adapter for that in order to get that to work, because the motherboard itself doesn't have one of those new modern ones. So these are going to go through the other slot over here. That way I should be able to just do the high def audio, which is labeled as AAFP over here. Put a twist in the cable here so we're nice and neat back here. And then the front panel, I showed you that on the bench. I got some cable dressing to do, but until then, let me go ahead and put the card in. Now I want to leave these two spots right here for a possible video adapter. So it'll use these two. These are PCIEs. This is a ×16, this is a ×8, but really it's a slot for the second one. So I'm going to put this USB 3.0 in the next PCIe. So it'll go in this small one right here. And then I can put a screw up into the top here. Now I do want to put one more in here. I didn't show you this in the parts layout, but there's something else I want to do. And I'll show you this in a future video, how I use these COM ports. Most motherboards come with the ability to have a COM port. So you buy these adapters. I buy them in package of 4 for like $5. A couple of them I painted black frame. The other two I left silver. This one I'll just leave silver. That's going to go in the end slot over here. And the cable is going to plug in over here into this connector right here. That's the COM port. So I'm going to go ahead and put the cable connector in here, and now we have a COM port, COM1. And I'll show you in a future video how I use that and for what purposes I would want to use that. So it's plugged into this connector. Okay, now this is a good time to get the hard drive in. It looks like the easiest way to do it is to remove the hard drive cage, the 3.5-inch cage that we have. Then mount the hard drive to that and put it back in. Now, I missed something during my review. And what I missed was, I thought you had to take this whole foot off in order to get to the second connector here. Because you can see the first one here, right? Well, there's another one. It's inside the center of the shoe. So if you put a screwdriver up in here, you can actually take that out without having to take the foot off. It looked like it was going to be a major job to take the foot off, and I was starting to get concerned as I surveyed this case prior to the build. But it looks like they did cover it okay. So I got that one out, I got that one out, and now the hard drive cage should just come out. There we go, it pops right out. So what I'll do is I'll now install the hard drive onto the cage. So here's the hard drive, and I want it so that the connectors are reachable from the back. Remember, this is the way I took it out, so I need to mount it this way. And it looks like it just goes onto this little rail thing here. Okay, now the hard drive is in. So let me find a SATA power. Got a bunch to choose from. Let me pick. Okay, now I've got the, I'm going to pick this cable that has 1 Molex on it and 2 SATA power. And I'll plug one of these SATA power into here. The reason I want the Molex is I believe the RGB is going to need that. Okay, so we got the power for that. And then I got a straight across and lockable SATA data. So all I have to do here, connect up to SATA like that, and then this one is going to be fed right through here to the front, to the other side, and plugged into the motherboard. And then the rest of these cables, I'll do a cable dressing later. They're just going to all tuck into here nice and neatly. And then here on the other side, easy enough to go ahead now and connect up the SATA cable to SATA 1. So now the hard drive has its data connector in addition to its power. At this point, the last thing I have to do is put all of the RGB fans on here. Okay, let me start getting the fans in. Okay, a couple of things on this first. These fans, plastic cases, but they have these rubber triangles that go onto the feet. You first have to decide which side you want. They didn't give you enough of them to go on both sides, which is okay. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, but also I got to remove this panel. There's 2 screws here in the back. Actually, it's not screws. It looks like it's just offsets. So it looks like just these 2 screws right here. Okay, now it's time to get all these RGB cables straightened out and connected to the RGB controller. Now, one thing about this connector, and it is Molex, but it has both genders on it. One side is male, the other side is female. The Molex connector that I have here happens to be female, so I'm going to have to connect the male into it. And I'll wind up, I guess, putting some double-sided tape on this. It seems like it's radio controlled. I don't see anywhere where the infrared comes into this. At least I don't see it. So what I'll do is I'll probably just glue it back here once I've got it all wired up. But these are all of the cables from the various fans. Each one of these cables has, 6 wires on it. So 4 for the RGB and 2 for the fan is what my guess is. Which means it is possible. I'll have to look at it and try to figure it out. I might be able to put other devices on that RGB. This controller actually supports the ability to support a bunch. It looks like 12 of them maybe. I see 5 on this side, 5 on that side, and I'm not sure what that is, if that's a daisy chain. No, that's a different kind. That might be for regular RGB. I'll just try that for the heck of it. I'm going to try to plug a regular RGB in there and see if it'll work. I'll put a meter on it first, make sure it matches the RGB values that I expect. But let me hook it up first. Okay, I got some double-sided tape here. Put on the back of this to start. Push down and twist. Let me do some cable dressing at this point. I will just jump ahead, get it all cable dressed, and then we'll see the end product. Okay, here's the back now with the final cable management complete. I know this doesn't look too good over here, but that's the best I can do under the circumstances. It'd be better if it was all black, but it's not. Let me see if the cover fits on without any problem here. Absolutely no problem at all. And that completes the back end wiring at this point. And then here's the front side, all completely wire managed. And I've even filled in those 2 I/O panels with extras that I had lying around that sort of matched the color of it. And with that, let me button it all up and see if it all works the way I expect it to work. Okay, it's all back together again. It's got the glass on it. Let's make sure it starts okay. Wow. The screen is around the corner here and it is booting up into Windows. Got my little adjuster here for different colors. So let me try changing to different colors. Like a purple, there's a red. Let me try auto mode. Oh my goodness, that looks nice, right? So what I'll do next is I'll go ahead and do some performance testing of it. And then we'll be done. I don't expect a lot out of the performance. It is a rather low-end computer, but you know, we'll see what it looks like. I think it's good enough for, you know, home automation, home office use. If you want to use it for anything like games, you'd have to add a video card to it. Okay, here are some benchmarks and tests that I ran on this new system. The first one is the Cinebench results. Well, moderate. Then the Crystal DiskMark on the disk, not very fast. And then finally, I took a temperature comparison, running both Prime 95 and Cinebench. Interesting. And then finally, I actually forgot to do the tear. The front tear was very easy. I should have skipped the second tear though, however. I mean, this is disastrous. If there was a funny computer build videos, I think I might win top prize for this one. It's an absolute joke. I should have left it out, or at least put it onto the blooper section on the end of the video. Anyway, at least you get a laugh out of it. I mean, unfortunately the sound didn't work because I forgot to turn it on, but ouch. And then here it is, running in its full glory with all the plastic gone. Well, that completes this PC build. Hopefully you got something out of it, something you found useful. If you did, be very helpful if you do me a favor and subscribe to my channel. My head will pop up here in a minute. Follow along, subscribe. Well, until the next time, stay healthy and stay safe. Take care.